are Legion.
We are all.
We are one.
We are
Watching. Hoard Illuminati.
Welcome back, folks, to Hoard Illuminati Tangible Corner, a special edition type podcast where we take a look at physical items from our personal collections and share the stories around them and information about them with you, our listening public. Welcome back, and with me as usual is my co-host Adam.
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Hanging in there.
And then we have a special guest this week all the way from way up north in Canada, our friend Trevor from the Hoard Illuminati. How you doing, Trevor?
Doing well. Good day, eh?
Thank you for Canadianing it up for us. Putting that
Take off, you oser. And contrary to popular belief, although I seem to be proving it wrong today, pretty sure 99% of Canadians just say "a" to fuck with Americans and think we do it think we do it normally.
But you've done it inadvertently quite a bit in our off
like 5-6 times.
Yeah, off recording talk. You've done it quite a bit, so I think it's a thing.
I've also apologized 4 times?
Yeah, a number of times today.
Unfailingly
if there was a
polite.
drinking game, you guys would be smashed.
Unfailingly polite, the Canadian folk, and we love them for that. We're rude enough for our entire continent. So we thank you for keeping the levels of goodness high. So this week, I have a crazy item. It doesn't look like much unless you know about trading cards and specifically Star Wars trading cards. Folks that are fans of the digital card trader app from Topps are familiar with Galaxy Selects, and that's a series of cards from in the mid-90s of original artwork. It was kind of in that dark period of Star Wars between the Return of the Jedi and the special editions and the prequels. This mid-90s time, there wasn't really a lot going on with Star Wars, but there was starting to be kind of a resurgence. We were about 10 years out from Return of the Jedi, and people were starting to look back fondly at Star Wars, and there was starting to be some merchandise coming back around for it. And Star Wars Galaxy was a set of cards that came out that was pretty well received, and by today's standards, pretty lackluster, but they had incredibly nice artwork and a lot of really original commissioned artwork for this set. And so it was a big enough success that they were going to go and do another series of these cards. Now they've gone on since then to do, I think they're into 6 or 7. I think they're up to Series 6 now because it's continued over the years.
Like that.
Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think 6 is what's coming out next. But they were, back in those days, there were magazines like Wizard and Overstreet, and then there was a couple of magazines like Beckett that were around card collecting, where they would insert promo cards. And there was also the direct solicitation magazines for the comic industry, where they would also insert promo cards. So in order to help sell the cards, Topps would print up these cards, and they would insert them in these various publications and get the word out that their product was coming out. And they'd give you an actual physical with a nice image on the front and on the back, all the information about the set, when it was coming out, how many cards were going to be in it, all those kinds of things. And these were called promo cards. And they don't. There's really not much like that today. The industry for physical has really gone downhill and changed a lot. But back in those days, that was really the way they got the word out. Now they just tweet, just put out a tweet and tell you what's coming, and everybody gets their wallets out and, let's do it. This particular card is a promo card for Series 2, and it features an image of Yoda in front of some kind of statue of another Yoda-like being. And he's levitating, and it's called the Floating Yoda promo. And this card was not approved by Lucasfilm. They'd already produced and printed these cards for publication in some avenue. They were going to put these things out. And then Lucasfilm said, no, We don't have anything with Yoda as far as backstory. Is he part of a race? Are there more than one? We haven't colored in that box yet, and we don't want anybody else to right now. So they had to pull production. They stopped production of the cards, and they trashed them. They trashed the entire run, except some wily employee at the printing plant or at Topps stole one small box of these cards and tucked them away. And then eventually they started to work their way out into circulation through really a black market at card shows and things like that. And there's no firm number of how many of these cards actually exist. And I chased this card for well over 10 years before finally obtaining one. And it's a pretty valuable card. Even today, it still goes for around $500. And graded copies even more so. It was like kind of the redheaded stepchild. It's like the holiday special of Topps cards. That thing that came out that nobody acknowledges, but everybody knows that it exists, and it's a highly sought after Star Wars collectible, and so much so that in recent past, I think it was in series 4, I think it was, when they went back to the well with Star Wars Galaxy, they actually produced a version of this card in the set called the Lost Yoda. And it was a numbered insert that came at really long odds, something like 1 in 275 per, 1 in 275 per packs. It was really, really tough odds, and they were numbered to 999. And then there's also an even more rare variant of that card that is signed by the artist on the back, and those routinely go for quite a lot of money as well. The 991, the reprint goes for, I've seen as little as 60 and as much as $150. So even the reprint is really highly sought after. But this original one is the one that Star Wars collectors, that's like a key. You could have every card they've ever produced for Star Wars from Topps ever in your life and not have this card because they're so hard to get a hold of. So it's a gem in my collection.
That's really cool.
Yeah, really happy to.
That's pretty incredible.
I actually tried to trade Steve Sansweet for one time. He was after one of my prototypes that I did of a Star Wars figure, and he's like, "Hey man, I'd really like to have that. What would you like?" And I'm like, "Dude, the only thing I really want is that floating Yoda card." And he's like, "Sorry man, I only got one of those." And that's like Mr. Star Wars. That's the guy that has everything. I figured he had a box of those things. He has one. So I'm equal to him in that. I have one as well.
That's great. And you said you picked that up at like a card show?
No, I actually ended up buying it on eBay. I had
okay.
I can't remember what it was I sold off. I'd sold off something for a massive return on eBay and took the money and said, okay, I'm finally getting this fucking card. Right around the time when the reprint came out, a lot of people that had these said, okay, the value on these is going to tank. I'm going to get rid of it. And that was right around the time, too, of the economy really kind of went in the shitter as well. So it was good timing for me to be able to pick one up. So I was able to get one. It was expensive, but nowhere near as much as they go for now.
That's awesome, and a cool piece for your collection. Now, do you ever like display that anywhere? Does it just like sit in the drawer, or does it have any like place of prominence on your shelf?
Well, as you can see, it's in a hard case, and I actually put Velcro on the top and bottom of the hard case, and then I put Velcro in my card binder so I can just put it right there as a little divider in the front of my binder there, and it just sits there in the cool darkness of with my binder with all my other cards. And every so often I pull it out and I just smile at it because I'm so happy to finally have one. I chased that sucker for a long time.
Very cool. How about you, Trevor? What do you have? Show us what you have.
I've got a couple items. The first one, to stick with the Star Wars theme, is a giant version of issue number 1 of Star Wars, the original 77. And I found this at a used collectible store. It's not in the greatest condition, but it was around $20, and I thought it'd be really neat to have something that is from like the origin of Star Wars, and as a young person, I was born in 1991. So Star Wars, like the original trilogy, had finished and was released 8 years before I was born. Like I'm right in the middle of the original trilogy and the prequels, and I was raised on the special editions. I still have actually never seen the original version of either of the trilogy. So I've only for Return of the Jedi, I only know the big band. I don't know just Droopy McCool, Max Rebo, and Cy Snoodles, who still gives me the creeps to this day. Anyway, so I still haven't even read it. It's still in the most part the package I got it with, but I just want to frame it. It's about, I'd say 25% bigger than your normal comic book. So like it's something that you could probably like hang up as like a photo, like a picture or a piece of art and whatnot. And just, yeah, I thought it'd be a really cool conversation piece and a nice kind of own a piece of original Star Wars history that predates me. But another piece I have is, so being Canadian, shocker of all shockers, I'm a hockey fan.
You don't say.
Being from the Vancouver area, I'm a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. And 3 years ago, their farm team, the Utica Comets, was in the American Hockey League Calder Cup Finals. And with that, I used to collect hockey cards up the wazoo. I for the most part, I've gotten out of that hobby, but I still kept 2 player collections. One of which is for a former Canucks prospect who's now at the Penguins, named Frank Corrado. And what this puck is it's a puck that during the finals, Frank Corrado scored with.
Neat.
So yeah, so I have a certificate of authenticity from the 4th game of the series, and it was the 3rd goal, if I remember correctly. It was a 2-1 goal. It was the 1 for the Comets, 2 for the Manchester Monarchs. But yeah, so after the series was over, the American Hockey League put them all up on eBay, and as a player collector of his cards, I was like, oh, I would love to have something that unique in my collection, because it's one thing to have, enough cards and maybe like a jersey or something like that, but to have something with a lot of significance, let alone like a game puck, but something like a goal puck from a championship series was something that I felt that would be an absolute cool cornerstone to have in any collection. So thanks to a good friend of mine, because they decided, well, if I remember correctly, it goes through the eBay Essential Shipping Program. And so for you guys, it's like, I think they got like free shipping, or it's really cheap shipping to the States. For Canadians, it's about $20 shipping. And freedom bucks. So that's about $25 Canadian. So on top of it,
we call them Trump coins now.
Oh, is that the term you guys use for them now? So it went on auction, and if I remember correctly, I won it for about $30 or $30 or $40. But thankfully, I had a friend who has a United States postal box, so we just got it shipped out to that PO box. So it would save me a fair amount of money on shipping, and then I just pick it up from him when it arrived. And so lo and behold, I still I keep it displayed with my other cards on my shelf, and the Star Wars comic gets displayed on top of a giant bookshelf. I have about 140 Star Wars novels in my living room. So they're both prominent displays for both different reasons and both important parts of my life, in my opinion. One being something I'm a major fan of in terms of films and Star Wars, and one being something I'm a major fan of in terms of sports and hockey.
That's really cool. Now, for those that don't know, that the AHL is kind of, if you're going to put it in like baseball terms, that's like AAA.
Yeah.
And the Calder Cup is kind of like the Stanley Cup of the AHL. So that's a championship scored goal. And that's just like the game used items that collectors just freak out for, especially when it has significance to you for a player or a team, or in this case both. That's such a cool piece.
That's neat, yeah. I'm not a hockey fan, and even I can appreciate the value and the emotion around a piece like that. That's what makes things valuable to us. The significance that we place on these things is all about emotion, so that's a really cool piece.
Yeah, and one side note, because you'll probably see it in the picture as well, is it's not even necessarily a mint condition puck. you can probably see potentially in like the bottom corner there's a little bit.
Definitely.
That just makes it cooler. He knocked the shit out of it. He knocked pieces out of it as he was scoring that fucking goal.
Yeah, it almost means that much more that there's like a little bit of like wear to it. It's like, yeah, because like a mint puck is cool, but it's like, okay, you could have bought that in the store. It's like, no, this got knocked the shit out of. This got knocked into a net. This got rubber knocked off of it.
It's got a tooth embedded in it. That would be awesome. It actually has a guy's tooth in it.
I think I remember once seeing a jersey card where there was a little part of blood in the guy's jersey. I just flipped past quality control there.
You could clone him and make your own hockey player. That'd be neat. Play hockey for me, clone. So what do you got? What do you got this week, Adam? What do you got there? It's some kind of poster.
It is a
How
poster.
big is this thing? Hold it up. I want to see it because I saw the picture and I couldn't get a. Oh, okay. It's a lot larger than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's a poster for the band Refused, which is a hardcore punk band. And not many people know about them, but they're a really influential band on what happened with kind of the shape of not only rock, metal, punk, and kind of alternative music. They kind of shaped the sound of everything you ended up hearing from the late 90s to really the mid-2000s. And my item today is a poster for their album called The Shape of Punk to Come. It was their 1998 release, and soon after this album came out, they actually broke up. Now, they've reformed for a couple reunions over the years, but this was kind of their Sgt. Pepper's. This was their Pet Sounds of the punk rock community. And for those that don't know, this is a band. They come out of Sweden, and they kind of grew up on some of the American hardcore punk rock sound. The kind of Gorilla Biscuits and kind of Youth of Today kind of sounds, and then they kind of melded it with metal. And it created a unique sound to that region and something that they later adapted all their own. But this poster is only part of the story. This poster is actually a love story. And it kind of starts out with me starting out at USF, University of South Florida. In 1997, I kind of discovered them through the school's media center of all things. I listened to bands like Snapcase and Earth Crisis and Strife and all this kind of like straight edge hardcore of the day in high school. And I was going through the media center as you do because you hear that you can check out videotapes for free. That was something you don't know about, Trevor. Those are called VHS.
Hey, I had those. I'm not that young.
Yeah, but yours were like Barney videos.
Televisions used to be square, too.
Yeah. So I find this album from this band called Refused, and I see it's the songs to fan the flames of discontent. And I'm like, oh, it's on the same level as all these other bands that I like. I'm just going to check it out and listen to it. And that album sustained me for my freshman year. It was like an eye-opener. I'd been listening to like punk rock and ska, like third wave ska and different things like that. In this album, the one that preceded The Shape of Punk to Come, the song to fan the flames of discontent, it absolutely kept me going. I used to travel about 50 miles every week to go from Tampa to Bradenton, about an hour south. And I had, as you do in the late 90s, rather than, buy a copy of it, what did you do? You dubbed it to a cassette tape. And on this cassette tape, I had Refused, Snapcase, and a local Gainesville band called Hot Water Music. And these three bands basically sat in my car untouched, just flipping from side to side, as I go back and forth between, my parents' house and the dorms. And fast forward a year. It's my sophomore year of school in 1998. I'm doing college radio at USF. I have my own show with my friend, and we play, metal and punk and stuff that we're listening to. And we're starting to go to a lot of shows. And there's this little kind of hole-in-the-wall punk rock place. It was called 403 Chaos. It was right near the University of Tampa downtown. And It held about 50 to 100 people inside. It was basically the size of what's now my living room and dining room combined. It was about a 10-inch riser that the bands would play on. If you needed to go to the bathroom was behind the stage. You had to walk through the band to get to the bathroom. It was that small. And I saw that Coming Soon was refused. I'm like, this Swedish band is coming to Florida? Holy shit. I've been listening to this album for the last year. Well, it was a tour to promote their new album. And I was like, I am there. It was October 1st, 1998. And as I'm doing this stuff, the week before, I actually have a couple people call into our show and request some music. And it was girls. Wow, girls are calling into our show. And wouldn't you know it, it was the roommate of the girl that became my wife. So I meet Jennifer, my wife, for the first time about a week before this show. And we're going to go out and hang out. But the problem was Hurricane Georges was coming. And we all got, kind of evacuated. And I went home, she went home, and we're like, we'll meet up when, this is all said and done. So the next week happens, the hurricane passes, nothing bad happens in Tampa. And I go to this show. It's in this hole in the wall. And it was like nothing I'd ever heard. This New Shape of Punk to Come album sounded nothing like their old stuff. It was like someone blew up a sonic bomb. They started mixing in pre-played violin to their albums. They were playing early techno in their albums. There was like jazz openings to some of these albums. It was things that those of us because the album hadn't dropped yet. So those of us in the show were kind of looking around and going, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy. But I was mesmerized by it. It was incredible. These four guys, they played the shit out of this album. It was about the beginning of October, so it meant it was still 100 degrees in Florida. And these guys are in fucking black turtlenecks, playing their asses off in this little hole in the wall with not enough air conditioning and too many people there. And it just changed my view of what could happen with music. And I had to wait for this album to drop. They didn't have any with them on tour because it was pre-release date. So I picked up whatever they had. It was like an EP collection. I went home happy. These guys were, but they were getting heckled. They were, because they're like, it's so hot. And it's like, take off the fucking turtlenecks. It was that kind of show.
And they did, and they're totally shredded.
And then you hear by the end of the show, as I've just been like mesmerized by what they've been doing, they're saying, this is our last tour. We're breaking up. Refused are fucking dead. That was their words.
Damn.
And I was like, holy shit. I just saw one of these shows. They finished up their tour, which was like another 4 shows. And they quit. Everyone thought they were done. They went into complete hiatus for years and years. And this album got terrible reviews initially. Awful reviews. People were refusing to even review it. And then it became this seminal album that everyone measured what punk and hardcore could become to. And now it's revered and loved within the music industry. But I said this is a love story. So after this show, I was totally engaged with what they were doing. But then had the other hand dealing with, they just broke up right in front of me. So I promised Jennifer I would meet her after the show. And I call her up through my dorm phone. I barely had a cell phone that I could only use on nights and weekends. And I met up with her. I got changed. I remember this vividly, that I didn't have enough time to shower. I was sweaty and stuff. So I tried to make myself smell as good as I could and change my shirt. But I remember I was still wearing the shorts, and my socks were all sweaty because it was 100 fucking degrees in there. And we decided to just go for a walk around campus. And we walked around campus. And that was the night we kissed for the first time. October 1st, 1998.
Wow.
And in just a couple days, that'll be the 20th anniversary of our first kiss.
Aw.
Thanks to Refused and their album, The Shape of Punk to Come.
Wow. That's a fucking... That's
wholesome as... That is wholesome as all hell.
That's amazing. I love
that. That
it.
is amazing.
That's so cool, man.
That's my story today. And if you have a chance to listen to this album, it's great. The Deadly Rhythm is still one of my favorite songs of all time. It's a great album. And The Shape of Punk to Come.
I am making a note.
It was distributed in the U.S. and North America by Epitaph Records.
Well, it's probably on YouTube, so you could probably be somebody I'm sure has ripped and put it on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
So that's best. That's my go-to for finding music these days. That's amazing. What an incredible story, and so sweet, and such a perfect picture of a time in your life and an amazing night. Capped off by, the love of your life. That's just incredible, dude. Really amazing.
And funny side note to this story is that I knew about the show because I'd gone to all these shows at the same place. This is a poster that would have been hung up in record stores and whatnot. It has the wrong date on it. There could have been so many more people there, but the company put the wrong date on it. It says September 30th. This show is October 1st. There was maybe like 75 or 80 people there, and they missed one hell of a show.
It would have been hotter.
They
they could have added more heat.
It was fucking hot, but it's just one of those things. All these series of events led to them breaking up, and a lot of it was because this tour was such a dismal failure for them, and the album got such awful reviews to begin with. But now it's an album that everyone aspires to. It truly is the Sgt. Pepper's of punk rock.
Wow. See, that's funny because I'm an older guy, and so when I think of punk, I think of the 70s and the mid and late 70s and the really dirty punk and
sure.
The musicality was just not there. I mean, a lot of people went into punk that could play two chords, and then that was it. Really fast, play two chords really fast, and just boom, 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 and blast out some really shit. But they had a hell of a good time, and they changed music a lot. And what music could be, and then you come around to the punk of the 90s where the musicality is so much more accomplished and so much more interesting, and so many bands doing so many different things and taking different influences and stuff like that. It's amazing stuff. I love music. It's amazing shit.
Yeah.
So that's our show for today. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and if you want to ever contribute to the show, send us an email either at hoardcast@gmail.com or tag us on Twitter @hoardcast.
Yep, and take a look at these cool items on our Twitter feed. We'll be uploading those along with the podcast, so you can have a look at these cool things. Thanks very much, guys, for sharing all this stuff, and thank you so much, Adam. Congratulations and happy anniversary.
Well, thanks. The wedding anniversary is in a month and a half. It'll be 15 years married this year. We were married in 2013, and it's 20 years from that fateful night.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Happy to share.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Take care.
We are Legion.
We are all.
We are one.
We are
Watching. For Illuminati.
We are watching.